Alrighty, folks. Um, so just waiting for Jalen Jenkins to get on the podcast. We're starting at 6 p.m. and it is 5:59 p.m. and I'm eating a banana. I'm really hoping that the audio quality doesn't sound too bad. I'm using the microphone from the actual laptop, and then I'm using these earphones simply to pick up Jalen's voice so that his voice doesn't get recorded on top of what I'm saying. Um, First time doing me personally recording a podcast, hosting a podcast through Zoom. So it's definitely I guess you could say it's practice. I'm hoping that it turns out well, and that the audio quality comes out well, and that the recording actually records. As of right now, it says it's recording in the top corner. So I think it's recording. What's up, bro? Hello?
What is good? What is good? What is good?
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Or does it not sound good?
No, like you sound fine. You sound fine. Excuse the background. It's just a reminder of where I used to be.
Is that Culver City?
Yeah, that's where I'm from. That's where I'm
Oh
from.
shit.
That's
Like
home.
I forgot that's where you grew up.
Yep.
Culver
From
City, what's the main freeway off of that? Or like what's the closest big freeway?
I actually don't remember honestly.
All right, so what are some neighboring cities? You're by like San Fernando Valley almost, right? Or you're by Compton?
Hell no. I'm not. I was nowhere near. Um, Fox Hills Mall. Does that sound familiar?
No. What?
Let me try another one.
I can literally just look it up.
42
I
Let's
can just go on Google Maps and look it up.
fuck it. You might as well look it up.
Let's see. Culver City maps. So Culver City is by the Museum of Jurassic Technology. It's close to Santa Monica Airport,
Yes, sir.
close to Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, Star Echo Station, the Wendy Museum or Wende. You're by the 10 freeway.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what Rio was.
so Inglewood's not too far away.
It's not. Nope.
All right, I think I have an idea where you live then, for sure. So what's up, man? How's it going?
It's been going pretty well.
Yeah.
With things starting to open back up, I'm starting to, I guess, sort of find like more hope again. Um, I mean, I'm still like out up north still, but hopefully, I think by at the earliest, like next week or between next week and 3 weeks, I'll be back in SoCal to visit.
For sure, man. Whenever you come down, you're welcome to hang out with me. So just let me know.
I got you, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, man. We're recording. This is like the first time I do a podcast through Zoom, so it's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, dude, tell me about tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about who the fuck is Jalen Jenkins.
So it's like that. So okay, all right, for sure, for sure. Can you repeat those questions again? My bad. Um,
Just whatever comes to mind. Like if someone asked you like who's Jalen Jenkins, like what's your answer? What comes to your mind? And we could just start from there.
Who is Jalen Jerome Jenkins? Um, he is definitely more. He's an interesting character. You can say that. Um, he's definitely like exploring like new experiences and soaking them in and just learning as he lives basically. I remember like being like little, I was very, very shy and quiet and passive. And as I started to grow up and started to sort of, find myself, find who I really am as a person, I started to become more open and more, um, I guess, adventurous, if that makes sense. I guess you can say I just started to come out of my shell, basically. And like now, Jalen Jenkins is this person who is not necessarily afraid to say what's on his mind, but still sort of has a bit of a guard up, a bit of a wall when it comes to meeting new people, new experiences. Just as like a precaution of like just in case of what if happens, but slowly but surely he's starting to forget about the what ifs and he's just starting to live life.
That's legit, man. And I feel like I could relate to a lot of what you're saying. I think most people could, everybody could relate to that. I think pretty much everybody kind of struggles with just being themselves 100%. And well, at least there's a lot of people that are conscious and they're putting the effort to get to that next level. And that's dope that you're on that path. What's some of the things that you're learning about yourself now that, you know, like you said, you used to feel like you were kind of in a turtle shell and you've been slowly but surely kind of getting out and voicing what's on your mind. What's some of the new things that you're learning about yourself throughout this journey?
I think definitely the new things I'm learning about myself is just sort of the different interests that I want to sort of pursue. That I used to pursue, well, not necessarily pursue, but I was very interested when I was sort of little, but I was sort of afraid to sort of pursue those interests out of just being judged by other people or just being afraid of what people would think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's like a lot of people. I personally think that a lot of people go through that stage, especially like in their teen years, especially males, because it's just more. I think as I think as men or as dudes, we're kind of taught to sort of like keep quiet of like emotions and stuff like that, or to like sort of push through, or to sort of try to fit this norm of what it means to be a man, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you feel like has kind of helped push you to not care? Because like you said, it's kind of like society puts these pressures on us like males and really just everybody in society. But with men, like we get pushed to not express our emotions and we get encouraged to just be tough and keep pushing through. Like was there a particular moment in your life where something inspired you to just not care anymore?
I think definitely just sort of like going into college, just sort of just you just learn basically, and I honestly think sociology was a part of that because learning the things I learned in sociology, I would have never learned like at home or at all because some of the things that I've kind of seen or kind of like been through in my life, I just never really understood it. But actually, like with sociology, like the study of society, I kind of just sort of realized the reason why things the way they are in our society and why I was kind of brought up the way I was brought up and why I kind of have these sort of views that I sort of have or why I kind of believed in this way before but I believe in something else totally now.
Yeah. So you almost feel like the knowledge that you gain and your degrees in sociology.
Yes.
Okay. So you feel like kind of getting more knowledge with regard to how society functions and with how maybe our psychology works, you kind of realize that maybe all these ideas were actually just like these made up ideas, and that it wasn't actually the way it should be. It's just more so the way that society has kind of thought of it to be. Is that kind of what it is? That's kind of what comes to my mind when I think of shit like that. Like, it's almost like we're not brainwashed, but in a sense, kind of brainwashed. And it's like everybody's saying this shit. But then when you learn about how it's happening, it kind of just, you kind of are able to disassemble it, kind of. Like, I don't know.
Well, the one thing I also do believe is that like as we grow up from like when we're like babies to when we're adults and stuff like that, we're learn from like what we see, and we're like basically learn based on what we're taught like at home. Hold on, my bad, I'm about to sneeze. Hold up.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Oh, God. First person to sneeze on the podcast. You hear that, Jalen? First
Yeah.
person to sneeze on the podcast. That's good shit, man.
Hey, that makes it different, right?
That makes it different right there.
But yeah, like I was saying, what I feel like what most people are. I can't speak for everybody because everybody could be brought up in a different way. So that's what I also learned in sociology, is that you can't assume people have the same experiences that you have. You kind of just have to be with an open mind and just make sure, um, not to not to be totally general, but just keep in mind that not everybody is living the same way that you expect to live in. But on the other hand, like I was saying, I feel like at least how I was brought up, like what I've learned in life when I was growing up is what I was taught from home, from my parents, from like sort of experiencing a few things like at school and stuff like that. So I just kind of been taught in that way. So I sort of just had this view on life, sort of like a closed mindedness or whatever. Or sort of like, oh, I had to do this because, this is what men do. I have to do this because this is what I was brought up to do. Um, but now like I feel like with school, I feel like this is the reason why school is so important, and like college and interacting with different people is so important. You learn different things and you grow.
Yeah. So what are some like legitimate examples of you kind of turning into this or actualizing more of yourself? Like, I feel like as you're telling me this, obviously we known each other for a couple years, or at least it's been a couple
Probably
years about.
you could say a couple years.
Yeah, and then like I know recently when we've been talking during quarantine, you've been telling me about kind of your creative endeavors, and I remember you showed me the TikTok videos that you made, and then you sent me some of the.
TikTok.
Come on, bro, you did those TikTok dances, or I mean, you did
Oh
some
yeah,
dancing. Yeah,
yeah,
like
the TikTok.
you sent me that, and then you showed me
Like a
one of
few
your
snippets
little.
of like my music or
Yeah,
whatever.
so it's just like me seeing that, like as you were telling me what you were telling me, that's kind of what I think of, is you kind
Hmm.
of doing these more like creative endeavors. That's just a lot of free expression. Because yeah, I feel like anytime you do something kind of creative and where it doesn't have any sort of boundaries, like you kind of make yourself vulnerable in a sense, because you don't know how people are going to perceive it. And I
Yeah.
feel, in my perspective, I feel like that's part of your journey, is like you just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to start making music. Fuck it, I'm just going to start dancing and putting up TikTok videos. And like, bro, your fucking videos are like, your shit's good. Like, and considering that this isn't even like the thing that you focus on completely, you know, like, yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, I just feel like we're in this time, especially in society, especially I guess now since being sort of quarantined, is just you just sort of just have to find like what you really want to do in this world, and if not necessarily do it for, I guess, the money or whatever, but do it because it's something that you really wanted to like try before and stuff like that. And it's just, I've always kind of wanted to sort of write my own music because I am a big music fan. I've always been a music fan, and I just felt like I was one day it was just sort of like, fuck it, I'm gonna just write some bars real quick. Like, I'm gonna just write some of these bars. I don't know if they're gonna be good or not, but we can hit a studio sesh or whatever. Like, cause I sort of connects with some upcoming LA artists back home, which I'm probably gonna try to connect with when I get back out there or just like later. And I'm probably gonna go to the studio and just try to see what I come up with. And I'm not gonna lie, like the way I'm gonna do this is that I'm gonna just, because I'm sort of perfectionist at everything I sort of kind of do. It's
You're what?
um like when it's something that like I want to do sort of seriously, or I want to sort of kind of pursue, if that makes sense, whether it's like school or like running track and stuff like that, or doing music, I always want to sort of make sure that what it sounds something that I like, or the way I'm running is the way I want to run, if that makes sense. But I know with that it takes like a lot of hard work and stuff like that. So I know that making sort of like good music is not going to just be like, I'm gonna just write some bars or whatever and just start rapping and stuff like that on a beat. um I think in that sort of a sense, that's like the only time, like right now, I'm sort of like kind of judgy on certain things, because there's a part of me that wants to be sort of perfectionist, that wants to put out like really good music that people enjoy. And I do want to be able to have good promotion and stuff like that when it comes to releasing a project and stuff like that. I want to have a plan when it comes to ultimately, releasing music and stuff like that. I want to learn more about sort of like the industry and stuff like that. I just don't want to just jump into it like necessarily, because I think it's just something that I seriously want to think about pursuing. I'm not saying it's going to be like my career or anything, but it's just something that I want to do, not only for fun, but I just want to make sure that it's like, it sounds good. At least to me, it sounds good,
Yeah.
and I want the world to see it.
Yeah, man. Honestly, like, I think it's always a combination, right? Like you're saying that, like, you want to do it, but then you also want to have a certain degree of strategy and a certain a degree of like thoughtfulness, so that the content, the music is actually like entertaining for people to listen to. So I feel like it's always like a combination of like, let me try to strategize and like be thoughtful, but then at the same time, let me not fucking think too much, because otherwise that's gonna take away all the fun. And then like I might not be honest with what the fuck I'm saying if I think too much about what people want versus just what I want to talk about, right?
Exactly. And it's just like, I think about with music and stuff like that, and I feel like with these artists and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of good music there's a lot of good music out there that's just not getting like the promotion that maybe it maybe it should deserve, or it's just like the promotion's just not there because some of it is like independent. Some artists are independent, and I think there's like really a lot of creative, super talented independent artists out there that just don't get enough love because they just don't have the connect or the promotion or the money
Mm,
to really go big. But there's like a lot of mainstream artists that really fucking suck.
that's
But
true.
they have the money, they have the promotion and stuff like that. And so I feel like with mainstream music today, I think it's mostly terrible, honestly. I feel like it's really like not that hard to make sort of a hit single. You just have to sort of have like sort of connections, and you just sort of need to have like a catchy beat, and that's like a hit. But when it comes to making like really good music, I'm not saying like really good music isn't, some of the really good artists aren't mainstream. I'm just saying that some of like the art and music has been sort of dead for a while, and I feel like we need to come back to that. Or if not, then it's cool. At least those like artists that are really like putting in the work to make art, at least I'm their fan.
Yeah.
I'm on their side.
I agree. I get what you're saying. So it's like there's because I mean there's yeah, there's music which is more like an expression of someone's thoughts, music where it's more about the content and like just really diving deep and really kind of trying to leave people's mind like in a place where they're gonna have to listen to it multiple times to like really gather all the information. And then there's other songs that are more kind of, I guess you could say, almost artificial because they have music engineers who know what psychologically triggers people to want to just listen to it over and over and over, which is obviously why those songs are on the radio, right? But
Exactly.
I feel like I know exactly what you're saying because there is a level of depth that is missing from those songs that are mainstream. But I don't know, because I'm like opening my mind to just always find the beauty in everything, or like understanding that there is beauty in pretty much everything. Like I also see how those songs that are hit on the radio, like they've mastered that idea of flow and that idea of like hitting the punchline. And like so there's a real art to that too, like because not everybody could just make a single that'll pop on the radio. Like it takes a real collaborative effort of engineers, of people who know how to write, of the actual music artists themselves and the way they portray themselves.
Ghostwriters.
Huh?
Ghostwriters.
Yeah, I actually don't know much about them, but would they be an example of that?
Yeah, because like ghostwriters is just basically, I guess, writers who basically write raps for other rappers. If that makes sense, it's just plain and simple. And they're
Okay.
called ghostwriters because they're not supposed to be found out about, or because with rapping you're supposed to write your own raps, or at least that's where that's my opinion. I really don't know what
Well, that's
people
probably where
consider
the
rap these days.
that's probably where the origin of hip hop came from. Was shit that came from yourself, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Um isn't Drake? He's a ghostwriter, right? Someone else writes his lyrics?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any like issue with Drake. I actually think some of Drake's music is just really really good. So when I found out that there were like ghostwriters and stuff like that, I was pretty hurt because. But at the same time, he's not just a rapper; he is also a singer. So like maybe it's sort of like a touchy thing. Like I don't think it's necessarily okay with singing either, but there are like songwriters out there that make really good money that make songs for artists that might not sound necessarily good like with their voice, but might sound like a lot better with another person's voice. So I mean, but I guess songwriters they get credit for it. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not called ghostwriters; they're like songwriters. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like kind of a weird thing, but I respect it. It's like I said, I think it's almost like an art form. Like the thing I was thinking of right now was like when there's a ghostwriter and they're creating the lyrics and then someone else like actually express or like sings or raps the lyrics, it's almost like if they were acting for like a movie, right? When you have
Mm-hmm.
an actor in a movie, usually the actor doesn't write their own script. They're just following a script in which the director, whomever wrote it, then they go and act it. But I feel like that's one of the beautiful elements to it, is that it's almost like two people's ideas comes together and then it creates this beautiful piece of art, right? And I think there's a lot of I think that's actually really hard to try to find harmony between two people or a collaboration of people. That's always been a challenge for me because I've always been more of an individual person. So I think there's a lot of I think that's really cool when people can come up with shit and put them together, you know?
Yeah, that's solid dope.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
said that we were going to talk that because I know when I hit you up, I said I wanted to talk about like the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
yeah.
Let's get into that.
Let's go, bro.
Do you have any like questions about that or certain views?
Uh, I got a lot that I can say, but I'd prefer to for you to start off. Just whatever comes to your mind. Just obviously you hit me up, and I'm sure there's a lot of shit that you want to talk about. So just go ahead and start it.
I mean, you're supposed to interview me though. You're supposed to like have like at least one question, so like at least start me
You want?
off.
All right, you want me to ask you a question? All right. How do you feel regarding the protest? Do you feel like the protesting is really benefiting the cause? Do you think, what's your opinion on the looting? I know some people have highlighted that. I'm just asking it just to simply ask the question.
Hmm.
I don't think in my opinion, I don't think the looting should really drag people's attention. Um, I think people try to overemphasize that to take the tension away from the actual like thing that matters, which is the Black Lives Matters movement. But just tell me about that, the protest, the looting, and just kind of all that stuff that's been going outside.
Um, I think about the protesting is that, I mean, it's always good to protest for a good cause. I mean, it couldn't have came at a worse time. Like, we're in a pandemic, so the whole social distancing was just thrown out the fucking water. But, you know, but I feel like protesting in general, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, do I think it's important? Hell yeah, because it just shows that we are mad. I think what makes it sort of even positive is the fact that, you know, other races and other cultures are getting involved and becoming allies of ours. Um, and honestly, like, I'm a person that really only sees one race, that's the human race. Unfortunately, society sees it a totally different race that, you know, at least in the US, that white is that race. And if you're a white male, you're going to make it, like, you're going to make it basically. And if you are like any other race, especially if you're black, um, you're just basically set up to fail to sort of begin with because of the generational trauma from slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, LA riots, all that stuff. So I can't really as far as looting, I can't condemn people for looting because, you know, people are mad. Like, we've been wanting to make a change. Like, the US is supposed to be the land of the free. Honestly, I feel like the US is a complete joke, to be honest. Um, Especially it's very contradictory, and basically all those laws and stuff were basically written by white males, not white men and women, but white males. So that ideology of the country is based off a white man. So, and it's still like that in 2020. So people are, you got to think, people try to protest nonviolently, still get beaten, beaten up. We have a president that is sort of promoting killing and beating up protesters. So as far as looting, I actually had this conversation with my older sister too, like, because I actually kind of was against the rioting and the looting because I didn't think it was anything that was going to be um, solved from that. And honestly, it's not. But you can't really condemn people because people are mad. It's trauma for years and years, and centuries and centuries and centuries. All that anger and trauma and stuff like that of wanting something to end. It's sort of like you're in an abusive relationship. Like, your abuser is not going to just let you leave when you ask them to leave most of the time. Sadly, in some cases, you have to either hit that abuser back or kill that abuser in order to be free. But you can't do that necessarily because obviously, in the court of law, you'll go to jail for the rest of your life if you kill somebody. If it's not in self-defense and stuff like that. And I feel like by the way, sidebar with battered women, I feel like it's a very touchy subject because it's unfortunate in the situation that they're in, and I feel like it's sad that it is important to sort of realize that with battered women. But onto the other subject, Black Lives Matter. I just feel like people are just angry, and I feel like it is understandable with the looting and the rioting because people are angry. But obviously, if you're rioting for like attention or looting just to get free stuff, obviously that's wrong. But other than that, you know, it's definitely understandable.
Yeah, man. I appreciate all the information. I think you gave me some perspective that I hadn't really heard before. Um, that's a good point, though, that all the people who made the laws were white males. Like, not even white men and women, but just white males. Like, so it's such a it's such a specific group and gender, and obviously it's kind of obvious that it's going to lead to something bad when you have that much of just one like type of person. Because if you have a group of people and they're always together, those type of people are going to have a specific belief. But when you have a group of people and you have people from all different walks of life, then now you're going to have a lot more diversity and a lot more probably justice, because you have all these different perspectives. And I agree, and I think it's crazy because I didn't really pay attention to like the statistics of like what the population of the United States is. But from my understanding, it's isn't it like 40-50% is like white, and then the rest is like just a bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I've read in like predictions that in like 40 to 50 years, the Latino race is going to be the predominant race.
More than white?
Yeah. Um, but I mean, that's like 40 to 50 years from now, and it's like no guarantee. But it's just like basically, even with, the preaching of equal rights and stuff like that, there's still like a lot more work that would need to be sort of done to
Yeah,
sort of, I guess, fix this. This is going to take like many, many, many years to even sort of have a chance of making it equal. Because you got to think about it. It's like forever of just like genocide and racism in this country. Started with like the Native Americans, with the Europeans basically slaughtering them, and there's like only 0.5% Native Americans in this country, literally, and they live on reservations and stuff like that. So literally, this is their land that they're on, and even white people are based off of immigrants. So it's just we just got to put that in perspective as well. Like I'm not saying like fuck white people, this that and the other. I'm not saying that at all, because actually I'm friends with like really good people that happen to be white. But I'm just saying that this is exactly why um black people get mad when non-black people say the N-word, for example. Not saying that even white people have gone through like some sort of slavery or some sort of genocide. It's written in history. But at the same time, that N word, it's it's represent it's a representation of what we were labeled as slaves. But as black people, we take ownership of that and prideful as that. So when somebody else of another race says that, it's sort of like they're trying to sort of like try to say that they are basically like not trying to act like, but they like all that they're like either treated as like an N-word, or they know what it feels like to be an N-word, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, dude. I'm not gonna lie, and I've said this a couple of times on the podcast already, because I've had a few podcasts where we talk about this Black Lives Matter and all that, and just I've been to a protest already. I went to they had a protest in Claremont, and I was there, and I've watched the Netflix documentary 13th Amendment. I saw the other Netflix TV show, the not a TV show, but they had a series, the When They See Us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw those 4 episodes, and just been on Spotify. They got a playlist called For the People or something like that, and they've got Malcolm X's speeches. They got a speech by Obama. They got a speech by a bunch of different people, and I've been really just like immersing myself and becoming more knowledgeable with the history, and with really getting perspective as to what it is to be a black person in America today. And yeah, man, I'm all for it. I've like you said earlier, like I believe in one race. I've always been someone. Obviously, this is called the art of human.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one of my favorite quotes is by Bruce Lee, and it goes, under the sky, under the heavens, there's but one family. It just so happens that people are different. A lot of times when people quote that, they don't say the last part, or they've just simplified it without the last part. But I think that last part is important. Like, it just so happens that people are different, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like we're different, but we're still the same. Like, it's always that yin and yang, that idea of black and white. Like, there's always the we're different, but we're the same. And it's just acknowledging those two and finding the harmony between that, you know? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with having different cultures and having different beliefs and having different this and that, right? There's a lot of variation between, what one group of people think and what another group of people think. There's nothing wrong with those differences so long as we're not fighting and there's injustice between us, right? So
Yeah, because as
that's
human
the
beings,
issue.
yeah, because as human beings, we're not supposed to be judged on who we are. Like, we're not supposed to be judged on, like, what gender we identify as, or what race we are born with, or what sexuality that we are, or what we did in our past and stuff like that. Well, you can't. Well, it's a touchy subject of what you've probably done in your past, like positive and negative, because that's always going to be a part of you in a sense. But at the same time, we can't judge people for who they are. Just I feel like my philosophy is just, as long as you're not doing something that's hurting society, like hurting other people, or you know committing like heinous, like terrible crimes, I don't have a problem with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, we live in a country where we're supposed to have freedom. We're supposed to have the right to say what's on our mind. Like, we live in this country where we're supposed to have all the freedom. And it's like, I was talking to my brother about this the other day, and he was saying how this country is kind of like an amusement park. Like, people think about the United States sometimes, and they think about how you come here and you can make money, and the American dream, and you can start your own business and all this shit. And like, from one perspective, it's like, oh yeah, man, like United States, like, it's dope. It looks like a fucking amusement park where you can have a bunch of fun. But then little do a lot of people know that there's fucking a bunch of injustices going on. And it's like, it's an amusement park, but it's a rigged system where there's a bunch of fucking shit going on in the background to fuck over a group of people. And so it's not necessarily the amusement park that maybe a lot of people think that it is. And if you're ignorant about it, if you don't do your research and you're not knowledgeable, you're gonna think this shit's fucking Disneyland. And this shit's not. I mean, there's a lot. I'm not here to talk that it's all negative and shit, but there's a lot of shit going on in the background, and if you're not aware of it, then you might be getting fucked over without knowing it. And yeah, man, it's not an equal system. And I think, although, like you were saying earlier, like, it's gonna take a long, long time to really ever get that equality that everybody wants. But I think what's important is that everyone has to contribute, right? Maybe
Little
we're
by
not
little,
gonna
yeah.
maybe our vision isn't gonna completely come to a place where it's 100% peaceful and there's harmony amongst everybody and there's not a single drop of racism. Like, I don't necessarily believe in perfection either, so I probably don't think that's ever gonna happen. But the idea is that you're constantly progressing towards that vision, and you're putting in work to get that vision come to fruition.
Yeah, and I feel like, honestly, that's the whole thing. I feel like, and that's what I fear, is that I feel like the fact of the matter is that I don't know when or if this will ever happen, but I think we're getting sort of close to a point where there's going to be some sort of race war, or like some sort of civil war, in order to make this happen. Because basically, I feel like what people might see is that the only way to truly get something done is with violence. And I feel like I don't want people to sort of get into that idea, but I feel like it's getting close to that idea where we might just have to go to war within our own country again, or just a shitload of anarchism, and nothing gets solved with anarchy anyway.
Yeah, man. I'm not too sure. I mean, I really
I mean,
obviously I
it's
would.
definitely an extreme view. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, when shit like this happens and you're sort of kind of numb to it and stuff like that, you kind of just sort of like thinking of all these like crazy like sort of things that might be able to happen if something is not really truly done. Because let's be real here with the George Floyd situation, yeah, it's just a lot of protests, but there's like hundreds or thousands of, I'm not even gonna go with like black people, but like just people in general that have been murdered by because of the color of their skin by police. Most of those police officers are free, literally, like not charged with a crime, like no jail time, are free. So it's like with the whole George Floyd situation, if there's justice for George Floyd, there should be justice for every single missed injustice in this country, every single one, or else we're, I'm not saying it's ever going to totally happen like that, but in a perfect world, it should happen like that.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind regarding this topic, and talk like get an idea for how long it would take to make change. Like, I personally, this is just an idea, but I feel like the difference between right now and any other point in history is that we have technology and we have cameras pretty much at everybody's fingertips, and everybody has access to them. You have buildings that have cameras at a lot of different angles, and I think right now, because of people having cameras and basically holding accountability, I think we're going to be able to start cranking down on all the injustices. And especially now that everyone's kind of, because I mean, like I said, everybody has a camera in their hand, but not everybody's willing to record it. But I think now I'm one who has always had a phone, but I've never been one to pull out a phone and start recording. But like, I was just driving to my parents' house just yesterday, and I was driving, and there's some guy on the side of the freeway doing graffiti on the wall, and I
Mm-hmm.
almost took out my phone and started recording. But the second I thought about recording it and I actually took my phone out, I was already driving past it. But it was like, it's starting to become in the back of my mind, like, hey, you know what? I need to start recording shit that's unjust, right? So that's starting to become part of my programming. So I'm sure that's gonna start happening to a lot of people. They're gonna see injustice, gonna be like, God damn, I'm start recording this shit. You know, of course, it's got to be more than the recording. People got to actually stand up and be there. And just like George Floyd, he was getting what happened to him. Obviously, you would have hoped that someone was there and could have stopped the thing from actually happening, because recording it's not gonna actually stop it from happening like directly.
And you
But
got to think about it too, like with cops. I'm not saying all cops are bad, but you know, some cops, as you can see, are very, very shitty. And it's like it is also kind of a fear. Like if you do try to record, if that cop like kills that person, they might kill you too because you recorded them. You just got to think of it like that as well.
yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. um but I mean, at that point, I'm pretty, in some shape or form, I'm sure the cop would get caught. Like, I don't think there's any way that a cop's gonna kill somebody, then kill someone who recorded it, and then I'm sure there's other people recording it too. At that point, after he be like a huge murder for that cop to somehow get away. I don't know that he'd be able to get away with that. But
Yeah,
I get that though. I get that.
I mean, there's tons of different scenarios you can go, but we're not going to totally get into that. Let's just think of the positive perspective because I just don't. That's the one thing I want to still want to work on is just like the what ifs. Like I don't want to like totally be like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Because at
Yeah.
that point, you're just sort of just like not even expecting a change. You're just sort of just
Yeah, you're
like,
just dwelling on
damn,
it. Yeah.
basically, yeah.
So then let's talk about shit that we can do. Like, what's one of the things that you feel like people can do, and what's something that you feel like, or what's something that you've been doing? Because I know obviously you're a black person,
Hmm.
so, but I'm sure black people are also contributing towards the matter. Like, what do you think is like something really important for people to be doing?
Um, well, if you're not protesting, all like educating other people, especially if you're in a pandemic, use your social media. You know, for those that are against social media, this is something that social media is actually very essential for. Is because nothing's really ever deleted off the internet. So you post something on the internet, you know, you just never know. It'll just spread, 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 and spread. and then more people will know.
I agree, dude. That's 100%. That goes back to the whole shit I was saying. Like, I just think technology is gonna be the thing that makes a positive change. So, like, yeah,
Honestly,
people gotta keep sharing the fucking, keep voicing themselves on their fucking, make Instagram posts, share it on their stories, like keep making content that fucking voices what you believe in. Because even if it only resonates with that
you
one
resonate
person
with somebody.
yeah, you resonate with somebody, and then that person will probably, in some shape or form, then express that idea mixed in with their own shit, and then that could then go to more people, and it's a giant ripple effect. You might not ever see where your voice, what the effects of your voice is, but that's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what, like, if you get to see what you've done or not. The point is that you just do it and just have faith that when every time you do it, that you're doing something good, right? And there's always, whenever you voice yourself, especially for something positive and for something that's in your heart, the idea or the likelihood for serendipity is always going to be there, and it's going to be a lot higher, right?
Facts.
So that's my big thing, bro. And I, like you said about social media, like I was one who was off of social media for like 2 or 3 years. But then I finally like kind of got not finally, it wasn't like I was rushed to it, but it was like I finally started getting more like in tune with myself and like spirituality and more like into my own philosophy. And it's like nothing's inherently good or bad, right? Like nothing's
Exactly.
inherently, like, it's just how do you use it, right? It's how do you use it. So I think the other good thing to talk about now is also like voting. Like, I think voting and like legislation, creating new legislation, like that's gonna be the shit that really fucking changes the game. That's kind of like the, like, getting new legislation and then having that come to law. That's kind of like one of the products. Obviously, I think the whole process begins from looking inside of yourself and putting in the work, right, on an individual basis. But ultimately, we want to see new legislation go through, right? Like, that's one of
Uh,
the things
that and I want to see new people of color in office,
that
like
true, yeah.
president type. Like nothing against like a white male or a white woman being running for office if all their intentions are good and all their policies are amazing and stuff like that. But I just feel like it's time for more people of color
Hmm.
to be in office, male or female, like people of color, like not just we had a black president. We're so equal as a country, like one out of like how many presidents,
That's
literally.
true. Very true. Yeah, I mean, people just got to stay motivated. People, I don't know how many people of color run for president, but I mean, you look at most people and they're all like, it looks like most of them are light skinned. Like, why is that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's because of the systematic racism that's in place, which makes it hard for people of color to even make it to the point where they're going to possibly become president. But obviously, Obama did it. And if one person can do it, then a lot of people can do it.
Well, I mean, there's like a lot of steps to becoming president as well. You have to obviously have a platform, and I feel like in a sense, you as much of an idiot Donald Trump is, as far as winning the presidency, he was smart because he knew sort of what to say, and he knew how racist this country truly was.
He took advantage of
So
that shit.
he really took advantage of it to the point where I'm not gonna lie. Some people don't believe Donald Trump is actually a racist. Some people actually believe he said those things in order to just be president to prove how like stupid the southern states or the Republican Party or conservative people are. But I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just saying that there's like some point of view with that, which might not actually be totally wrong, but Donald Trump is a hateful person for even saying those things, though.
Yeah, dude. I
Because
don't. Go ahead.
yeah, so I just don't know. I actually cried when I saw that Donald Trump won the presidency because I actually voted too.
Yeah. Did
Yeah,
you vote like in the final vote, like between Donald Trump and Hillary?
Yeah, like I vote like like I missed like half of my health class or whatever to go out and vote. And then I went to class and stuff like that. I voted with my mom. I voted for Hillary. I thought about voting for Trump as a joke, but I'm just like, this is not even a joke. So don't even fucking do it. Because
Yeah,
if you vote for Trump, then you can't lie. Like you can't lie about that and stuff like that. Like if you put Trump in the ballot and stuff like that, that's in the ballot forever. So I just like
yeah.
knew vote for Hillary. Don't even joke about voting for Trump because that's a vote.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I don't know if there's a lack of awareness with regard to this, but I heard it somewhere and it really resonated with me, and I think it's actually like really important. Like when people are looking into like who to become president and they're thinking about who to vote for, like they're looking into like all the different laws that they're thinking about promoting and all these ideas and this and that. But like you have to, like I said, I don't remember who told me this, but it really stayed with me. It was like a president is like they're like a figure, and like their words and the things that they say is like is really influential amongst the people. So like you, when you look at a president, when you're thinking about who you want to be president, you want someone who like gives strength to people, who makes the country feel strong, like
Like a
uh
representation of us as a
yeah,
country.
just a positive leader, like someone who has compassion, someone who, you know, all those different types of things. And I think that's why, like, I'll be honest, like I never got too much into politics in my past, but I just knew that when I thought of Obama, I felt safe. I felt like it was a person who had good intentions. I felt like Obama, you know, people could criticize the legislation and Obamacare and it's too much of this or too much of that. Like you can argue all these different types of things, but I think one of the most essential things is like a lot of people thought of Obama, like you think of someone who's trying to do some positive shit for the country. You know,
Uh
you can
huh.
get super deep into it, but like he was a dude who was like actually optimistic. And you can have people who are racist who will probably say, "Oh no, fuck that guy," like blah 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 blah. But like I said, it's just a vibe. What kind of vibe does he give off? And Donald Trump has always given off the racist, the fucking like douchebag vibe. Like, why would you want some shit like some person like that to be the president? Like, it doesn't make sense. The only way it makes sense is that a good portion of the country is a bunch of douchebags that don't fucking have
Exactly.
any compassion.
That's what I was about to say. Maybe we don't want that as president, but you just never know what other people might want. Because, like, I feel like sometimes I even forget that California is not the whole fucking country. Like,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah. I know exactly
Like,
what you're saying.
like the city of Los Angeles or Pomona is not the whole fucking 50 states and shit like that. Like, there's, like, literally, like, 49 other states and, like, millions of other cities and stuff like that, and millions of different backgrounds and millions of different factors that goes into it. Because let's be real here, convicted felons can vote, and there's like a lot of speculation that the presidency was actually rigged, which I sort of believe is true
Who?
because of technology. The actual election itself was rigged. I wouldn't be surprised at all because of technology. So you just never know what type of shit is going on, and yeah,
Yeah, man. I think that that's a good point though. Like you said, like sometimes you said sometimes I forget that everyone's not like California people, and that's some shit that happens to me too. I'm thinking, and then I'm like, oh shit. Like I'm thinking based off of the fucking state and like, you know, the because I've lived in SoCal my whole life. Like I'm thinking everybody thinks like we think, and you know, I think California, especially SoCal, like it's a very progressive state, or we're a lot of progressive cities, very open-minded in, you know, in certain aspects and in many aspects, I think. But
yeah.
you know, there's a lot of the country's different, and when you said that, I'm visualizing like, fuck, maybe I should try traveling across the country and like stopping at like I don't know about 50 states, but maybe stop at like fucking 20, 30 states and just get the vibe for everything, you know?
Yeah, and let's be real here. There's races everywhere. Even in California, there's races. So like, let's just not totally
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
assume that California is just racist free. Because like, there's probably like like racists out there in California, because the city of Los Angeles is not all of California. It's not even all of SoCal. So we got
Yeah.
to just keep that in mind as well.
No, yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, I went to that protest in Claremont, which is it's actually like one of the last cities that's technically Los Angeles County. It borders with San Bernardino County. But so we basically did a walk from one park and we walked down a hill and we got to another park. And at that other park, they had a little stage. And so basically the guys who were running the protest, they had their whole thing. We're doing certain chants and stuff. And then he basically said, "Hey, anybody from the community here in Claremont, any black people, if you have any stories that you have to share about, personal experiences, come up." And they had people coming up for about 2 hours, and all these people were talking about personal experiences of racism that happened within the time span that they lived in Claremont. So anywhere like between the 90s to like present day. So like,
Mm-hmm.
this is talking literally from present day to like within the last 30 years, and they all had stories. Like they had the story that comes to mind right now was one guy. He looked like he was probably like late 20s maybe, and he was saying how he grew up and he wanted a Range Rover, and so he just like busted his ass to get his Range Rover, and to the point where he was like one of the bank managers like in Claremont, and he got enough money to get his Range Rover, and then one day he's driving home in Claremont, and there's a police officer that pulls him over, and he asks him like, "Hey, like he said, why'd you steal this car?" Or he said, "Who'd you steal this car from?" And the guy said, he's like, "I didn't steal this car." And then the police said, "License and registration." He gives it to him. And then the guy just keeps looking at him. He's like, "Well, who'd you steal this car from?" And the guy says, like, look at the registration and license. Like, they both have my name on it. So the cop, even after he gave him the information, he didn't even dare to look at it. He still thought that he stole it. And basically eventually he ends up letting him go because he obviously found out that he was just being dumb. But the guy ended up asking the police officer, like, "Why is it that you think I stole?" And then the cop said something like, "Oh, well, it's because you look like a suspect, or you look like one of the suspects that got called in that they stole a car." Right? It's just some bullshit, he just made up. But like I said, even if there was a suspect and he happened to look like that suspect, you still have to look at the driver's license and registration. You don't just make the assumption. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, like this kid like legit just had that experience. I don't know, like within the last few years, and this is in Claremont, California, and I pretty much like live right down the street, and I'm in Claremont all the time, and I didn't think there was any race, like any of much racism that existed there, but that shit exists. So it's like even in the places where you don't feel that racism exists, that shit exists, right? Like it always is. So
Exactly.
yeah, man. Is there any like personal experience that you would want to share or not?
About race. I mean,
Yeah, I
I've
mean, I don't know, any kind of story that would maybe like be insightful or inspiring for people to listen to. Because like I said, like that kid shared his story, and like that shit's in my mind now, and that shit, in a way, of course, the story is not something to be happy about, but it was insightful
mm,
and it motivated me to be more aware and shit. So that's what I'm saying. Like, do you have anything like that you'd want to share?
not that I can recall necessarily and stuff like that. I think the not necessarily that I can necessarily recall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, no, actually, if there probably was like something that happened with me, I just probably can't recall it right now.
I feel it,
But
bro. Like, trust me,
but
there's
no.
probably some shit that's gone down with you, but you just don't remember that shit. Cause I'm telling you right now, like I said, I remember it was we were leaving that protest, and I was talking to my cousin's wife, and we are talking about blah blah blah, and I started to retrospect on my childhood, and we started to talk about kind of racism that exists in the Hispanic community, right? Because it's obviously it's not just black people, but it's they're the ones that are most heavily affected. But we started talking about some of the racism that occurs with Hispanics, And I had never thought that really too much racism had happened to me. But then I remembered that back in elementary school, they had me in the ED program. It's called the English Development Program. And basically, it's like it's like a program for people who don't know how to speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me in that program simply because I was Hispanic. And I remember being in like fourth grade, and I speak English just like any other kid, and they still had me in the ED class. It wasn't until like my parents had to get, I told my mom, like, hey, Ma, like, I don't know why I'm in this class. Like, I speak fine English, and I go in there and they're teaching me this, like, second, first grade English when I'm already a fourth grader and I'm doing just fine. And they had me in there simply because I was Hispanic. And I remember, like I said, I had to tell my mom to give the school a call, and it wasn't until a few phone calls that they finally took me out. But there was no rational reason to keep me in the program other than the fact that it was my race and that I was a Hispanic, you know. And they didn't treat me bad, I didn't feel bad about it, but I'm just saying, like, that's just an example of people doing shit simply because of the color of your skin or where you're from.
I actually can recall like an experience, but it wasn't like with like probably like a white person, but it was just sort of like some like my black peers or whatever, because like sometimes I would speak and they would just be like, "Man, you talk white" and stuff like that, or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because I speak proper English. Because sometimes I speak proper English, but it's just sort of like, I can, but it's at the same time, I didn't really like take it really that offensively, but it's just sort of like, what the fuck you want me to say? Like, bitch, nigga, hoe, all this other shit and stuff like that, talk a hood and stuff like that. I just think that it wasn't really I wasn't mad at them. I was just sort of mad at like society for having like black people think that we have to be talk hood or be hood or whatever in order to be black. And on the other side, there's other races and stuff like that. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in those environments of like hip hop and stuff like that, whatever. And they don't talk necessarily white or Asian stuff like that. They talk, or maybe talk with slang or act in sort of a hip hop fashion or whatever. Then they're like called being posers or like white trash and stuff like that. So for those people that actually do like experience and stuff like that, but at the same time do sort of that are conscious of that they are white still, those are the people I feel bad for, because those are people that I feel like they're judging the most. But
Yeah.
it's just like, the difference is with like people like Rachel Dolezal or whatever, who actually, like, it's funny, I actually mentioned Rachel Dolezal in my first sociology class ever, and then my teacher was like, "Oh fucking no, I fucking hate her,"
Who is that?
because she's this like white lady that like, I guess, like darkened her skin, made her hair curly, and identified as a black woman, but in reality she was a white woman. It was like a whole like news like thing on it. You should look up Rachel Dolezal.
When was
Honestly,
that she did that?
this was like 2013, I believe, or something like that type shit. It was a while
And
ago.
this girl's still alive?
I think so.
And why did she explain why she did that?
I don't even know, but it's just it was probably so fucking stupid or whatever. Like, because like there's like a scribe status and a chief status in sociology. A scribe status is something that you're born with, like the color of your skin or your race or ethnicity. Your chief status is something that you know you identify as based on your accomplishment, whether it's like your GPA or like your athletic achievements and stuff like that, or your job achievements. So this bitch, I'm sorry, I can't call
Nah, you're good.
what females bitches, but uh, this female basically try to say try to say that race wasn't a scribe status. Like, you can become another race, basically. So basically, she thought she can just become black, if that makes sense, or
Mm,
thinks that she's black, if that makes sense.
I got you. That's interesting, man. I mean, I'm gonna have to look into that story. I don't know what her intentions were. I don't know. I mean, maybe she had good
Shit, I don't
intentions
fucking
regarding
know.
it. That's
I,
what I'm
I
saying. I'm not. I don't know. I'd have to do more research. But I mean, if I kind of get what she's trying to say, like in a sense, like because there's so much history associated to black people and the skin color. But I
You
think in a
said you get what
way,
she was trying to say.
yeah, I mean, I like in a way I kind of perceive, and like I said, I've never heard of this girl. I don't know anything more than what you just told me, but in a way, like I almost feel like she's saying like, yeah, it's just skin color. Like it shouldn't matter what your skin color is, right?
I don't I don't necessarily think that's what she. I don't think that's what she was necessarily saying. I mean, but then again, I never really followed the Rachel Dolezal story that deeply, and if I did, it was like a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But I kid you not, I do not believe that was the reasoning. But I mean, feel free to look it up if you want, and you can hit me up later about it just to see what your views. Because like, I mean, I understand like where you're coming from because you never heard of Rachel Dolezal before, but
Yeah, and like I
you
said,
know,
like this is just based on the little bit that you told me, but it could be the opposite. It could be that she did that shit just because she was just wanted to just wanted to be like, oh, it's not that bad being the skin color, just to be freaking stupid like that. That's what I'm saying. I don't know anything regarding the situation, but yeah.
understandable, understandable.
So what's up? Let's see how long we've been recording. We've been going.
For like an hour, I believe.
Are we really? Dude, this thing
I
doesn't
think
have a
so.
timer on it.
I think so. Actually, I was on time.
Oh, it's
So
7:05. Yeah, we started at 6. Yeah, so it's been about an hour, bro.
yeah. Anything
Uh,
that you want to know or like wanted to say necessarily? Like anything?
uh, really, this podcast, my intentions behind this podcast was to really try to get the most out of you, like to really ask you questions and to really hear you out. Um, just because I feel like sometimes during certain podcasts, I'm kind of the one that talks a lot, but it's all based off of feeling. That's why I try not to. I know you were asking me like if I have questions, and I don't know. I like the idea of having questions, but I don't like to make too many like just questions
Mm-hmm.
that are pre-made. I like to just kind of ask stuff on the fly. Um,
And isn't that what you did though?
yeah, no, that's what I did this time. But I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
like when I don't do that, it also sometimes I end up being the like
Like if it
the
was rehearsed
person.
or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I always like to just really do things like spontaneously, but I am trying to kind of put more effort on getting the guest to actually talk more, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, it's all based on the vibe.
Yeah, like I just feel like when I said like ask me a question, it's just sort of like to like sort of get me started of like, you know, because I just don't want it
Yeah.
to be like a regular, just like oh, like conversation. I mean, it could be. I mean, I honestly think podcasts are just like conversations anyway. But I mean, it was just sort of like when I
No, there's
thought of a podcast, I thought it was sort of like a conversation slash interview type of thing. If that makes
yeah.
sense.
No, it's a blend, and it depends what type of podcast you're doing. And I'm about 6.5 months in, so I'm still conceptualizing and getting used to being the host and all that. Like, it's just a practice game, and I really do envision this project going for a long time. So I see this as being like I'm just in the beginning phases.
Hell, I even
But
wanted to do my own podcast. Let's be real here.
bro, do that
I think
shit.
anybody can do a podcast.
Anybody can do it. Like I'm telling you, bro, like fucking start your own podcast, dude. Like it just goes back to what we were just talking about. Like it doesn't matter how many people listen to the shit. It's more about like just talking about what's on your mind and having intimate conversations like we're having right now. Like that shit has value, dude. Even if the only people that get value is just me and you, let's say we record this podcast and never share it,
Mm-hmm.
we're still gaining fucking value. You
From each
know?
other.
Yeah, and it's a plus when other people listen and they fucking like it. That's a plus,
It's a
right?
bonus.
It's a bonus. Like just being able to sit here and talk to another human being, like this is what fucking matters, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
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 that's
when
what I was
you
about to say with like sorry to cut you off,
go ahead.
but it just sort of like brought into my attention, sort of like, especially like, if I actually do want to totally like pursue this sort of music thing and like release a track or whatever, like, and do all the promotion and stuff like that. If I do everything that I can and still don't get the promotion I want, it is what it is, because I released something that I put my heart and soul into it. And if that one person that actually liked it was me, then I don't fucking care about the rest. Because if I fucking like it or whatever, then if I feel like I can listen to it and stuff like that. That's the thing that I wanted to say about like releasing music or actually making my own music. If I feel like I can make a song or whatever, and I feel if I can put it on replay, because not because I made it, but if I feel like I can put it on replay because this is legit music I actually like, then I won.
Yeah, dude. And in my opinion, I think if you're honest, I think if you're really being genuine with what's on your mind, heart, what's your conscious thoughts, and really expressing that in an honest way, in my opinion, I think it's almost a for certain, like you don't expect people to necessarily like it, but I think the possibilities of people liking your content, whether it's music, whether it's literally poetry, whether it's paintings, I don't care what it is. Like, I think if you're honest with what you do, I think that there's gonna be people that like it, and depending on what you do, there's gonna be a giant crowd of people that like it. For instance, like the whole world watches soccer, but there's only a maybe smaller percentage that keeps up with like esports. But there's an audience for both. It's just a degree of the audience is gonna change depending on what it is that you're doing. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, I think there's always a possibility to have an audience, you know?
Yeah, because like honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I ideally want the whole world to love what I put out, whether it's music, TikTok videos, and stuff like that. Just content like photo shoots. Like ideally, I want the whole world to love it and stuff like that. Like I want to have that fame and fortune and rich and wealth and stuff like that in my life. But
Why
whether it
is it that
happens
you
or
want
not,
that?
um, I just want to sort of, because honestly, at the end of the day, this is because it's kind of the way I was brought up and stuff like that. Um, that well, actually, that wealth, honestly, is like generational. So like, I want me and my family to sort of just have this wealth, so that we wouldn't have to necessarily, I guess, struggle financially, if that makes sense. But at the same time, be able to do the stuff that we want to do in this world, because like I think I think the sad thing about that is the fact that the world that we live in, some of the things that we want to accomplish, like some of the, I guess, the big things, um, they cost a lot of money. I can't speak for everybody, but some things that maybe like some people want to accomplish may like cost them a lot because it's expensive and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that like, if it happens, if it doesn't happen, then, it's like a failure. But I'm just saying that ideally, I want the whole world to, sort of like love my content because, because of the hard work and stuff like that. And, the money is the bonus and stuff like that. Like generational wealth is always like a great thing, beautiful thing.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, my big thing is like if the content that you're putting out is something positive and something that's insightful for people, like then like you said, like with the legacy that you leave behind, if it's a positive one, and obviously the more people that know you, your legacy is gonna live a little stronger.
Mm-hmm.
When Kobe Bryant died, I mean, I think that shit resonates with a lot of people all over the world, and um, I'm inspired. Not obviously, I didn't hope that he died, but I'm inspired by him, and the fact that he passed away. For me, I saw it in a way as motivation. Are you still there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I don't
I
know
just
why
it
this.
just dropped something, and then like I think I saw something on like outside or
Oh,
something like
okay.
that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know why my screen just shut off, but yeah, man. I mean, like I said, in the moment, and I think when it happens, things are really sad when someone who's done something so positive for the world dies. But then at the same time, um, they leave that legacy, and I think, if you use their legacy and use it to inspire you and as motivation, then his legacy continues to live. And that's kind of what I thought to myself when Kobe died. I said, Kobe was someone who went in 100% and someone who really dig deep within himself to do something really beautiful, and that's something that inspired a lot of people. And that's the same thing that I want to accomplish. I want to continue to dig within myself, and I'm not expecting to do what Kobe did or even influence the amount of people that he did. I'm just going to dig deep, and then whatever happens happens, because I think a lot of times the big shit that happens, it's not so much because the people planned for it. It's just more so they just were focused on themselves, and they had an objective, and they just stayed focused to the objective, and then all the accolades and all, the legacy, like that shit just comes with it. It's not like they're focusing on that.
Facts.
Fuck, dude, I'm getting hungry, man. We're burning calories during this podcast.
Hey, that's lit.
You finally got the lighting checked up in your room?
Finally got it all checked out.
So where could people check you out on Instagram and stuff, or if they want to follow your content?
As far as like my main account, you could follow me on JWavy, JAAYWAVY. I forgot to spell my own Instagram name for a second. And if you want to look at track and field, fitness, sports, academic achievement / I guess mental health quotes that I might start posting on that other account, you can follow me on Jalen Jenkins Official, JALEN JENKINS, and then official. My
TikTok.
TikTok is, let me check my TikTok name. Hold up. I got a lot of content. Oh shit. Jalen Jenkins 0. You can follow me on TikTok. Twitter is Jenkins_Jalen, JENKINS, and another S, and then underscore my name. And then, I have any other social media? I got every social media. I only have.
I'm sure people will find one of those. But last thing.
You better find one of those. I'm just playing.
Last thing, I know I don't do this every podcast, but right now it came to mind, and this is a nice way to end it. If you could speak to the entire planet right now, the entire human race, assuming that everybody could understand what you're going to say, whatever you say, it gets translated so that everybody can understand, what would be your message real quick for the human race,
My message for the human race is just pretty short. There's only one race, and that's the human race. Love is love. Violence only leads to more violence. Peace only leads to more peace, and happiness only leads to more happiness. And I think you guys can all get what I'm trying to say here.
All right, brother. Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You're always welcome to come back on. When you come down to visit, you could always, do an in-person podcast. Yeah, brother. Thank you so much.
Peace and love, one human.
I agree, 100%. All right, brothers. Let's stay in touch. All right.
All right, later.
All right. Peace out, bro.
Peace.